Well, the suspense and the wait is over. It is going to be a new governor in place of Shaktikanta Das. Remember, his tenure ends tomorrow officially, and this is the big announcement that's coming in from the government. It is the Revenue Secretary Sanjay Malhotra who has now been appointed as the Reserve Bank Governor. Sanjay Malhotra will take over as RBI Governor for a period of 3 years. That is the tenure for the new RBI Governor. He will head out from North Block to Mint Street. And remember, there was a lot of speculation on whether there would be an extension granted to Shaktikanta Das. He has already served 2 terms and the government has kept its cards very, very close to his chest pretty much till the last moment itself. Remember, his tenure ends tomorrow. And finally, an announcement coming in that it is, in fact, Sanjay Malhotra, the Revenue Secretary, who will take charge and replace Shaktikanta Das as the Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. That is the big story that's coming in today. In fact, let's just tell you a little bit more about the Revenue Secretary. Of course, he is an engineer and has had quite an eventful tenure in North Block, overseeing many of the tax changes that have been brought in, including, of course, all the GST changes as well. And now he will head to Mint Street. There was speculation on whether the government would consider the possibility of a non-bureaucrat. But as we've been reporting here on CNBC-TV18, that looked highly unlikely. It was likely to be either an extension for Shaktikanta Das or a bureaucrat replacing Shaktikanta Das. Remember, even the Governor Das himself took his position from Finance Ministry to the Reserve Bank. He was the Economic Affairs Secretary and then headed to to Mint Street. But Lata's here with us as well. Lata, Sanjay Malhotra, Revenue Secretary, now heads to Mint Street. This is a surprise. What we were given to understand is that the contenders included Ajay Seth, the Economic Affairs Secretary, and the Chief Economic Advisor, Anant Nageshwaran. But it is, in fact, the Revenue Secretary, Sanjay Malhotra, who's going to be heading to the Reserve Bank.
Well, as you said, the government has really played its cards very close to its chest. But I'm not surprised. The appointment of the RBI governor is always something which is personally the Prime Minister's decision. It's always been that way for the last 75 years. It is something which is the Prime Minister clearly takes responsibility. It is not a committee appointment like most other appointments are. So something leaks and there is a short list which journalists get to know. But this is the personal decision of the Prime Minister, and that's why it doesn't leak, doesn't normally leak. And this one, of course, has been a complete surprise. But as I read the CV of the Revenue Secretary now, RBI Governor from tomorrow, it's a very impressive CV. He's, of course, from IIT Kanpur and has also got a degree in public policy from Princeton. So, I mean, the best of both worlds, a technocrat, if you can put it that way. Also from the Rajasthan cadre. But when he has served in the centre, he has served in some of the most interesting and useful or rather, policy-centric areas. He has been the head of REC, the Electricity Corporation, because the Rural Electrification Corporation, and that is, a place where financial problems for banks has often arisen. He has been privy to these things of money not moving from discoms to banks, the reason why NPAs happened in the power sector. Before that, he was also in charge of a lot of the power sector reforms in his previous avatars. So I think comes with a lot of positives. Has served in several areas in administration, has served in power ministry, which is very key in terms of a key sector for the banking industry itself. As well, of course, as Revenue Secretary, knows the inflows and the outflows of the government very well. Qualifications are impeccable. IIT Kanpur, you don't get into an organization like that unless you have a very high IQ. And plus, also well qualified in terms of an administrator with a degree in public policy from Princeton. So, I mean, the CV is very, very impressive. The experience record is very, very impressive. The market will look at it as perhaps since he's coming directly from the finance ministry, it's probably going to be a rate cut in February, that he will come with a pro-government agenda. But I'll tell you something, Shereen, I have seen this with enough governors now. Probably I've covered 5 or 6 governors. Yeah. The moment you come to RBI, you are an RBI person, because if inflation goes above 6%, you're going to be called every dirty word in the book. So I would think that the market will look at it as dovish, but I would think when he comes here, he will be a good RBI governor. He will think like an RBI man. Well, that would be my submission.
You know, Lata, wasn't that exactly the same sentiment that was expressed when Governor Das took over at the Reserve Bank of India? And, you know, I always say this, bureaucrats know the ins and out of policy making and the ins and out of government decision making. And I think they have that advantage and that edge. And as we were also reporting here and we were discussing this, you know, the appetite to bring in a non-bureaucrat at this point in time perhaps just wasn't there, and which is probably why you saw this decision being kept till the very last moment. I mean, you know, Governor Das' tenure ends tomorrow, and at virtually 5:30 p.m. today, we're getting to hear about his replacement in the form of Sanjay Malhotra, the Revenue Secretary, now heading there. But let's bring in reactions. Pronab Sen, the former Chief Statistician of India and also the Chairman of our Citizens MPC, is with us. Mr. Sen, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us. It is a surprise. Sanjay Malhotra, the Revenue Secretary, now heading to the Reserve Bank. Your first comment, sir.
Well, I'm a little surprised, but not entirely so. So the surprise is not so much Sanjay Malhotra being nominated. It's more that Shaktikant not getting another extension. That's, I think, where the surprise is. But, you know, I was listening to what you said about the way RBI governors have worked. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that RBI has a very strong internal bureaucracy. And most governors, at least in their initial days, are reluctant to go against the advice of their bureaucracy. And that's one of the reasons why RBI has actually been very stable in terms of its decision-making. In the RBI decision-making doesn't change very much with change in government. The governor usually starts asserting himself somewhat later in the day. But by then, I think the person, whoever he is, has figured out exactly what is expected of him, even if he is not really aware of the ins and outs of monetary policy. And by the way, monetary policy is a lot more complex than just setting the interest rate.
Yes. Mr. Sen, I'll come back to you in just a second. We're bringing other comments in as well. We've got A.K. Bhattacharya with us, editorial director at the Business Standard, and also Rajnish Kumar, the former chairperson at State Bank of India. Mr. Kumar and AKB, many thanks. Mr. Kumar, let me start by asking you, Sanjay Malhotra, the Revenue Secretary, now heads to the Reserve Bank. Your first comments, are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised because Mr. Shaktikant Das, when he came, he also came from the Economic Affairs Ministry or the relevant experience in the Finance Ministry. So the Finance Ministry bureaucrats, they have been in the past RBI governor. So I don't think there is any element of surprise in it. The name, of course, only it is the prerogative of the government who do the post. But the pedigree is the same as of many governors of RBI in the past.
Yes, as we were pointing out, Mr. Das himself from the Finance Ministry transitioned to the Reserve Bank of India. AKB, your first thoughts on Sanjay Malhotra taking charge, replacing Shaktikant Das at the RBI?
2 points, quick 2 points. Number one, is now very clear that the government is obviously more comfortable with IAS officers as their RBI governors. And the faith and the trust and the IAS officers' ability to work in the system in which they can provide the right kind of coordination with the government and the monetary policy and fiscal policy coordination. And I think the choice is clearly fallen on an IAS officer. That's number one. And number two is that this is the 3-year term. So, which means that Mr. Malhotra will be the governor for the next 3 years, almost close to the end of this government's term, which is 29. So, in a sense, that you have got 3 years of a new term, of a new governor, an IS officer in place, economists and technocrats should probably take a deep eye that probably leading the central bank is a target that they may not be able to realize very soon.
Okay, well, point taken. I guess, there are enough advisors available for economics itself, and the non-economist has rendered a brilliant account in the past 6 years. Just coming to the other guests, H.R. Khan, former Deputy Governor at Reserve Bank, also joins us. Mr. Khan, Subbarao wrote in his book that, as long as he was Finance Secretary, he would tell RBI or expect RBI or find fault with RBI for not giving rate cuts way back in 2008. But once you take that flight into Ministry, that Delhi-Bombay flight changes you and then you become an RBI person. What are your thoughts? Will he become an RBI man very quickly?
No. This is a very interesting question you have put. No, I have seen quite a few governors. So I can say with some authority that what you say is correct. The systems and processes of RBI are so robust that people who have a different take about RBI policies soon come to appreciate the RBI policies. I know governors who were strongly, as a former finance ministry bureaucrat, they are strongly opposed to, for example, debt management shifting to RBI. But once they come to the Reserve Bank, they realize what is the importance of debt management.
Yes, I know whom you're referring to. Yeah, I can remember the instances you're referring to. That's true.
And people who talked about external sector reserve to utilize for infrastructure funding again come to realize, no, this is not what reserve should be used to. So this is what you say is right. So once you come to Reserve Bank, you try to appreciate the point of view of Reserve Bank much more in a much more convincing manner than what you were when you were in the other Reserve Bank.
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, Rajnish Kumar is the only one among our guests who kind of has a market touch. He's, after all, chairman of a fintech company. So, Mr. Kumar, I want to direct this question to you. Will the market expect a dovish governor or something like that? How will the market view the appointment of Sanjay Malhotra? What will their expectations be
really,
in February?
No. So as far as market is concerned, does it really matter what market expects? I think...
No, it doesn't matter, but I just want to know out of curiosity.
No. What I'm saying is the Reserve Bank of India, they have their own understanding of the market, the issues, how the risk is building in the system, timely interventions. So that is how the policy making works. Market would always say that everything should be easy. But when, as I was hearing to the comment of Mr. Khan, it's a role play. And when you are in a particular seat, then your understanding of the market would be more than any single player in the market. So RBI definitely has to guide the system in such a manner that innovation happens, growth happens, but at the same time, excessive risk-taking doesn't happen. And I don't think whoever is the governor, that basic fundamental principles nobody is going to change. Stance-wise, I agree, but there is a monetary policy committee. There are 6 or 7 members sitting there. So that is at times collective decision-making. And the Reserve Bank, I think they have to work according to a laid-down framework, and the data which is available to Reserve Bank of India in their capacity being the central bank, it's not available to any other market participant.
Yes, fair point that you make there, Mr. Kumar. But Ladayan, and for the benefit of all of our viewers, I just want to recap what Mr. Malhotra has actually done as Revenue Secretary in his current tenure at the Finance Ministry. And there have been some big changes on the tax front. GST, of course, has been the big one where we've seen many changes being announced, and it has been stewarded in many ways by Mr. Malhotra as Revenue Secretary. But outside of that, whether it was the changes on the capital gains side, even the very controversial, GST on gaming at 28%, all of these have been decisions under the Revenue Secretary Sanjay Malhotra, and he has shepherded these decisions forward. Even the issue as far as indexation, etc., were concerned, which became the controversies of this budget. All of those decisions have been hemmed together by the Revenue Secretary Sanjay Malhotra, who now heads to the Reserve Bank. And, to AKB's point, and I think that Governor Das's tenure has expressly shown that having that an open communication line with government to ensure that there is less friction and more alignment, I think that is certainly something that the government is hoping to continue with. But, let's also talk about the man that moves on today, Governor Shaktikanta Das, after a 6-year tenure, and pretty much till even a couple of moments ago, till the news broke, there was the expectation that Governor Das may in fact get at least another year's extension. Mr. Khan, sum up Governor Shaktikanta Das's legacy, his 2 tenures in the Reserve Bank, and what he leaves behind.
I think it was he was one of the excellent governors, and when we came, there were a lot of talk about his not being economist and all that. I think that was not justified, and his performance has proved people otherwise. He was a seasoned bureaucrat, and he had a lot of exposure to the economic ministry, both at the center and the state, and he has. And as someone has said, he was an excellent understanding of Indian economy, and he has been part of economic administration, and his performance as 2 terms, we have seen quite a few interesting things happening under him. For example, the way he handled the COVID crisis, I think, and he got twice the Best Governors Award,
yes.
Which is for nothing. From reputed international organizations, and whether in the field of monetary policy, whether in the field of bank supervision regulation, whether in the field of payment system. I think in all areas he has shown his caliber, and many areas he has shown out of box thinking. For example, a lot of things in RBI Innovation Hub, he has been responsible for that, and we are now talking about ULI and public digital public infrastructure, and quite a few things he has done in terms of improving the supervisory systems of RBI. He came in the wake of quite a few things happening in the NBFC sector, whether it was Punjab and Maharashtra Bank, whether it was ILFS, whether it was Dewan Housing Finance. But then he got into his task with a lot of one should I say elan, and he was a hands-on governor. And the most important part, if you contrast with some of his predecessors, he was very communicative and he was open to ideas, and he had a good rapport with the market, and he has also taken quite a few steps for deepening and broadening the Indian market. For example, deepening the Indian GSEC market, and he is one of those persons who has understood the peculiarity of India when he champions the cause of a stable yield curve is a public good.
Yes.
No other traditional economist would say in that fashion. So I think, and in terms of reserve management also, in exchange rate management also, he has shown his excellence. I think overall, I would say he leaves behind a very rich legacy, and the new incumbent has to necessarily continue most of his policy. Certainly, he will have his own way. There will be some change, but I will say mostly continuity and less of change. I think so.
Absolutely. This is such a superb summary of the achievements of Mr. Shaktikanta Das. This precious little one can add, Mr. Khan. That's excellently put. And so it will be easy for Mr. Malhotra to, at least in the initial days, continue with the trends that continue with the practices that Das has already left for him. Let me ask another question. I mean, move away into and look more to the future. Mr. Patra also, Dr. Patra's position also is going to find a new incumbent. The advertisement is out. Let me ask Dr. Pronab Sen. Dr. Pronab Sen, very seasoned economist, Dr. Michael Patra. And will the Reserve Bank, therefore, the entire Reserve Bank and the MPC miss a giant like him? And considering that the new governor is not like Y.V. Reddy, a trained economist, will they want to continue Patra, or will they look for a very good economist in that position? Any guesses on how they will treat Michael Patra's position?
Lata, that is actually a more difficult post to fill than the governor's post. Michael Patra was, in a sense, the backbone of the RBI now for quite a while. And he's going to be tough to replace.
Yeah.
One of the things that one could possibly worry a little bit about is that if you have a new governor and a new deputy at the same time, then things become a little problematic. I think the process of transition should be one step at a time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I'm worrying about much more.
No, your point is taken, sir.
That Dr. Patra should, in fact, be asked to stay around a little bit more to do hand-holding until things stabilize and the new governor finds his footing.
Okay. Well, that was the thinking in market circles as well. As soon as we saw the advertisement for Dr. Patra's position, many in the market were guessing that maybe Mr. Das will be continued because having both the people going away would be tough. But there is, of course, Rajiv Ranjan, who has been in the MPC for the last, 3 or 4 MPC meetings. But Patra, of course, is a veteran of, 9 years of MPC meetings, which is 9 into 6, over 50 MPC meetings. And, of course, the author of the inflation targeting framework, along with Urjit Patel. So that puts Patra in a league of his own and very difficult to fill. As you say, will both these positions be allowed to have new incumbents at the same time? The space opens up, perhaps, for asking Dr. Patra to continue, but the advertisement is out. So, it's very unusual that after the advertisement is out, that it's called back, but we will have to wait and see. Any guesses on that, Mr. Khan, that they may ask Patra to continue?
Yeah, I find what Dr. Sen, Pronab Sen says has a lot of merit. Some sort of a continuity will be provided by Michael Patra. But if at all government decides to have a new incumbent, I think Rajiv Ranjan, as you said, is there, provides the continuity. And we have now a framework of monetary policy. And I think, as you know, we have very well-groomed research department, both in economic side and statistics side and monetary policy areas. So they will be able to support. But I would only urge, I would only desire that we should get a good economist to head this post, which will like to be left in case Dr. Patra is not continued. Because besides being deputy governor, the deputy governor has to also lead a lot of research in the areas of economics and statistics. So the way the advertisement is drafted, I think there is a possibility of non-serious economists or people who don't have much depth in research and those areas may try to come. I think that may not be a good thing. We should have a good, solid researcher who is an economist of standing who should occupy that position. That's all I would like to say.
Yeah, an economist of stature and standing to replace Dr. Michael Patra, because otherwise you'll have 2 new sort of captains, so to speak, at the Reserve Bank. But AKP, just to take forward the point that was being made by both Dr. Pronab Sen as well as Mr. H.R. Khan, the former RBI DG, on the replacement for Michael Patra, but more importantly also the constitution of the MPC. Now, we've just seen the 2 external members being changed. We've got 2 new external members as part of the MPC. We will see a new governor in place as well. And if Mr. Patra goes, a new DG in place. The MPC now, and the clamour for a rate cut and what this could potentially mean as far as rate decisions are concerned going into the future.
Well, I think the constitution of the new MPC is an important point. And of course, Dr. Patra's absence will be felt if he were to leave. But remember that the new governor will be in place. And deputy governor's choice will be made by a committee that will include the new governor. So looking at it slightly positively, you will have a situation in which a new governor will have an opportunity and say deciding on his deputy governor who will be playing a key role in monetary policy making. So instead of saying, believing that it will be a completely new team, therefore there are dangers ahead, I would say that on the contrary, there's a possibility of a cohesive team in the making, in the sense that you will have Sanjay Malhotra taking charge of RBI and deciding in consultation with the cabinet secretary, who is the chairman of this appointments committee for the deputy governor's post, will probably have a team that can be a different team, will toe probably a different line and look at the challenges, monetary policy challenges from its perspective. So I think there's an opportunity as well.
Yes, there certainly could be that opportunity that you speak of, and all will be revealed as we get more clarity on what the government decides to do as far as the DG's position is concerned. As Lata was pointing out, the advertisement for Dr. Michael Patra's replacement is already out. Dipali Pant also with us, the former ED at the Reserve Bank of India. Dipali, many thanks for joining us. The suspense is over. Sanjay Malhotra now heading to Mint Street, just like Shaktikanta Das did 6 years ago, making the transition from the North Block to the Reserve Bank. Both the appointment of Mr. Malhotra, the legacy of Mr. Shaktikanta Das, and the road ahead. Dipali, your take.
Shereen, it's always a pleasure to be on your show. Well, all good things must come to an end, and so has Dr. Das's term, and he's done a great job. So there are big shoes to fill. I'm quite certain that Mr. Sanjay Malhotra, who brings with him a technocrat's point of view, after all, he's from the prestigious IIT, and what we need today is digital financial inclusion, and he has his task more or less cut out for him. I don't think there should be any fears, because the RBI bureaucracy functions like clockwork on a system, on systems and processes which will be there, and the bureaucracy will be there. And Mr. Sanjay Malhotra already has quite a track as the Revenue Secretary. So first of all, I extend my very best wishes and warm congratulations to him. And then let me just take a look at what lies ahead for him. First of all, we would be looking to him to combat the inflationary pressures which are building up both due to exogenous and endogenous causes. So the first task will be to keep inflation at bay and provide growth impulses and liquidity to the economy, which it sorely needs. He'll also have to handle rupee volatility, which is also exogenous against the dollar. And then he has done something at Princeton on public policy, which will help him a lot to combat the divergent goals of public policy. We require at this point his technical expertise, not only for digital penetration to increase, but for a framework for effectively combat cyber crime and, crime-related issues which are troubling the common man. I mean, crime even in UPI. So he has to, of course, he needs to strengthen regulatory and financial supervision, RegTech and SupTech. And Mr. Das had done a commendable job there by even using artificial intelligence to sniff out the mule accounts. he will need to strictly implement the PMLA, which goes without saying because that's an article of faith for the RBI.
Yep. Point
He will
taken,
also Lata, he will monitor the financial system on a regular basis and look at the IBC process, which sadly was stalling and much attention could not be paid to it. So he will also definitely have to go beyond the Jandan Aadhaar mobile trilogy and the UPI and face the new challenges. And of course, as I said, Dr. Kanta, for whom one has the greatest respect,
all those nitty-gritties are very important, but I think his first problem will be that he's coming at a time when growth is falling versus estimates, and inflation is higher than estimates. So that, I guess, is a very, very sticky position for any governor to come in. But he could have the beginner's luck, which Mr. Shaktikanta Das also had. I just wanted to add another point where Mr. Malhotra may have an advantage. You know, right now, that is in the last 2-3 years, the government has introduced an SNA Sparsh system, whereby the government doesn't give money to the states directly. The center and the states, for centrally sponsored schemes, put the money together and it is released as and when the programs are implemented. This is one of the reasons why there is a liquidity crunch, but that is only a one-time. I mean, it's just that until now the banks were getting that free float. That steroid is no longer available. Now they have to work for their deposits. But Mr. Malhotra comes with a very good understanding of the new system, whereby it takes more money is there in government cash balances for longer than there used to be earlier. You know, the banks got that easy free float, which is no longer available to them. They have to work for it. So, Mr. Rajnish Kumar, you think that will be a positive? Malhotra comes with a very good understanding of government cash flow. Okay, I think we don't have Rajnish Kumar with us. Mr. Pronab Sen, what would you say would be a familiarity with the cash flow would be his positive, and the challenge would be falling growth, rising inflation?
Well, I don't know, Lata. I mean, Mr. Malhotra's exposure in the finance ministry, he's essentially been the revenue secretary, which means he's been looking very closely at one dimension of the overall cash flow of the government, right? It's really the job of the Economic Affairs Secretary to manage both sides.
Yeah.
He's responsible for neither, but there's the Secretary of Economic Affairs who manages overall finances of the government. So I don't know how much exposure Mr. Malhotra has.
Actually, this was the Expenditure Secretary's introduction when Somanathan was Expenditure Secretary. But you're right, this is not Sanjay Malhotra's specialist area. I just thought he would have a view of the way government revenues go into the system. But you're right. The other problem, sir, you think he's coming, I mean, it's almost baptism by fire that you're coming at a time when growth is slipping and inflation is too sticky.
But not really. I mean, nobody's going to hold him responsible for anything that happens in the short run.
Yes.
It will be Mr. Das will oversee the response. And by the time Mr. Malhotra takes over, I think RBI's position would already be pretty much established. So I don't think he's going to face the immediate challenge. But the challenges are not over by a long chalk. There's more going to be coming in the future.
Yes, certainly more challenges in the future that Sanjay Malhotra will have to contend with, not just the sticky inflation as well as the slowdown in growth that we're seeing. But AKP, just to talk about, as Lata was pointing out, some of the advantages that Sanjay Malhotra could perhaps bring to bear as RBI Governor from his experience at the Finance Ministry. I think really the aspect of having dealt with the GST, because, all the rates go through the Finance Ministry's Revenue Department, essentially overseeing the manner in which rates have been moved around and dealing with states and the centre at the same time. As we look ahead, do you believe that kind of experience will certainly hold him in good stead as governor?
Well, to some extent, yes. But we are underestimating his other qualification, that he was also the Financial Services Secretary. So he dealt with banks in his previous avatar. So he is not completely new to the financial sector at all. So he understands how the public sector, the banks, and also to some extent the point that Lata was referring to about the money being, CSS money being transferred through the RBI. Now that is something which he is perfectly, in a good position to handle. So I don't think that would be a challenge for Mr. Malhotra. Probably he is going away from Revenue Department with less than 2 months to present the budget. You have to now worry about the Revenue Secretary. Now, the Revenue Secretary plays a far more critical role in presenting the budget and, making those taxation proposals here and there. Now, the government has to quickly fill in that slot because that is something which is equally important, and it's just going to happen in less than 2 months' time. So I see Sanjay Malhotra's moving to RBI is probably solving one big problem, but you have this other problem coming up. We have to get hold of a new guy who can take charge of the Revenue Department.
Very well said, AKB. You're absolutely right. Budget consultation started just this week. We're less than 2 months away from the budget, and we lose the Revenue Secretary. And as you pointed out, this is going to be something to ponder over, whether we have someone take additional charge within the Finance Ministry itself, or we have a new Revenue Secretary coming in. And it's also interesting, Mr. Malhotra's tenure with the IS was till 2028. So he had a fair amount of time still left, as part of his service. He is a 1990 batch officer of the Rajasthan cadre and was set to retire in 2028. So he will have to VRS as he heads to the Reserve Bank of India as the governor. Any thoughts, AKB, on what happens now in North Block?
Well, if you are asking about his tenure, I don't know whether he is completely left the IS to join the RBI as a governor. Now it is possible that he may be put on some sort of a kind of arrangement wherein he goes in there on deputation, and then he is capable of either gets another extension and then he retires as an IS officer. So it is not entirely out of the box if one were to see Mr. Malhotra as having been sent on deputation as the RBI governor. So I don't see it as a problem,
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we will have to wait to see who comes in as the new Revenue Secretary. In fact, speaking of Sanjay Malhotra, just last week, Mr. Malhotra was speaking at a Customs Department function, and he urged the Customs Enforcement Department to exercise caution while sending out demand notices to businesses. In fact, he cautioned against what he called high-pitched demand notices and asked tax officers not to kill the golden goose for some revenue. Here's Sanjay Malhotra speaking just this week at a function of the Customs Department.
We have to be very careful when we are taking action against some of the traders, especially related. When I say this, I'm meaning to say the technical nature of some of the tax avoidances and tax evasion that we may witness, which will involve typically maybe a classification dispute or an interpretation of an issue leading to a very, very high pitched kind of a demand notice, which is not related only to one particular industry, but it is not only a particular entity, but which is pervasive across industries. We are here not only for revenue, we are here also for the whole economy of the country. And so if in the process of garnering some small revenue, we are hurting the whole industry and the economy of the country, that is certainly not the intent. Revenue comes in only, if there is some income. And so we have to be very cautious that we do not in the process, as they say, kill the golden goose.
Well, speaking of golden gooses, or golden geese, sorry, As long as Mr. Malhotra was on the revenue side, he probably wanted a large dividend from the Reserve Bank. But now that he's on the giving side, I wonder how he will look at that particular entry when the budget is being framed. Will he be more sympathetic to the government from the position he has just come? Or will, again, the RBI, bureaucracy tell him exactly the formula?
We have live pictures.
Yeah, that's
Lata,
true.
we have live pictures of Sanjay Malhotra exiting North Block, getting into his car. So that's probably he's not commenting as I expected, but that's the Revenue Secretary Sanjay Malhotra leaving North Block and heading to the Reserve Bank of India shortly. Those are live images coming in there from North Block.
Okay,
That is
so
the new
that's-
Reserve Bank of India Governor on your screen, Sanjay Malhotra, who now moves from North Block as Revenue Secretary, replacing Shaktikanta Das as the new Reserve Bank Governor. Well, gentlemen and Dipali, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here with us to take our viewers through the implications of the change at the Reserve Bank of India. There are questions that remain unanswered, specifically as to what happens to the Revenue Secretary's position now, and more importantly, what now happens as far as Dr. Michael Patra's position at the Reserve Bank of India is concerned, and to the MPC itself. But those are going to be questions that we hope to answer over the next few days as clarity emerges. But for this evening, many thanks for joining us. Lata, quick final word.
Well, actually, he comes in at a time when there are significant challenges. I want to say one word, though Mr. Khan made a beautiful summary. It was an excellent, legacy that Mr. Shaktikanta Das leaves behind. Sanjay Malhotra will be very happy that if Mr. Das could handle such a trying period with such elan, he should be able to perhaps follow suit. It was excellent the way he handled COVID, and then thereafter the digital currency, the CBDC, central bank digital currency was launched. The spread of UPI became widespread. The whistling of danger when unsecured loans got out of hand came at the right time. He withdrew the 2,000 rupee notes without hurting anyone practically. And the use of AI and ML by RBI in regulatory and supervisory processes has been excellent. So, he goes with many feathers in his cap, Shaktikanta Das. Therefore, that would be a matter of encouragement for Mr. Sanjay Malhotra. And Sanjay Malhotra also comes with significant experience as to how government finances move, something which has been a sticky point. My worry would only be that he should have Michael Patra or someone like Michael Patra with him. Rajiv Ranjan is, of course, a stalwart in the MPC, and he continues. But nevertheless, for me, it's just interesting. AKB and you were worried about Revenue Secretary, and I was worried about who would come in Michael Patra's position. We reporters bring our worries to the way we look at government, don't we? Over to you, Shereen. I think this has been end of a nail-biting finish.
It certainly has been a nail-biting finish, and one that's not quite over. I would say that the first chapter is over, but we still, as we pointed out, have more suspense left because there are two important positions now that remain open. But as we say goodbye, RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das's tenure ends. From quoting Mahatma Gandhi to Martin Luther King, reference to the Mahabharata, and occasionally a famous Bollywood song, his 6-year tenure has been an eventful one, to say the least.
Shaktikanta Das certainly comes with a lot of qualifications, been there, done that, and therefore has seen the equation from the government's side.
Today, there is a turn in the wind which suggests that it is not imprudent to dream of a brighter tomorrow, even in the bleakest of times. As Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, our visionary former president, said, I quote, "You have to dream before your dreams can come true. A dream is not that which you see while sleeping. It is something that does not let you sleep." If patience is worth anything, it must endure to the end of time. And a living faith will last in the midst of the blackest storm. As the great Lata Mangeshkar, whom we lost recently, sang in her immortal voice, "Aaj fir jeene ki tamanna hai." It is faith that steers us through stormy seas, faith that moves mountains, and faith that jumps across the ocean. Mahatma Gandhi's insightful words, and I quote, "We are wakeful, ever vigilant, ever striving," unquote. We will keep Arjuna's eye on the evolving inflation dynamics and be ready to act as may be necessary. Our actions will be nimble and in the best interest of the economy. I recall what I had said in my statement of February 8, 2023, wherein I had quoted Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, "Never lose your faith in the destiny of India."